so often I feel like a kiddo is crazy before bed, so we naturally think we need only proprioceptive input, right? When in doubt, prope it out. Yeah, I'm in doubt right now. Like, let's do some prope, right? But I think that isn't listening to what their body is telling them, right? It's like if they are jumping and bouncing and spinning, they need more of that first in an organized system.
Yep.
Then we do the calming proprioceptive input at the end. Welcome to All Things Sensory by Harkla,
your go-to podcast for practical insights on sensory processing and development from an occupational therapy perspective.
One thing a lot of parents don't realize about kids' multivitamins is that the formula decisions really matter. Not just which nutrients are included, but how the entire supplement is designed for kids who may be more sensitive. That's something that stands out about Best Part Kids Multivitamin. The formula was developed with registered dietitian Britton Coleman, who works closely with families raising kids with selective eating and sensory sensitivities. For example, iron was intentionally left out of the multivitamin. Iron is really important, but it can often interfere with the absorption of other minerals, and it often creates strong taste issues, which can make supplements harder for kids to tolerate. Instead, the formula focuses on nutrients that can be taken safely every day as a foundation. It's also free from common allergens like dairy, gluten, soy, peanuts, and tree nuts, which helps make it a safer option for kids who already have sensitive systems. And the nutrients are included in a bioavailable form, meaning they're easier for the body to absorb and use. So the whole idea behind Best Part is really simple. Create a multivitamin that works with real families and real kids, especially those who are a little bit more sensitive. If you want to learn more about Best Part Kids Multivitamin, you can check it out in the link in the description.
Hey there, welcome to All Things Sensory by Harkla. So happy to have you here today. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Amanda.
And we're pediatric occupational therapy practitioners who are dedicated to making your life with your sensory kiddo just a little bit easier.
Yeah, today we are going to dive into all things sensory seekers and their sleep and why it can be really challenging for them at bedtime and nighttime.
Honestly, I feel like the biggest factor here is that our sensory seekers are typically running laps around the house before bed, asking to be thrown in the air and jumping and crashing, and they just are totally wound up. And I think what that gets mistaken for with a lot of people is that my kiddo has too much energy, they need to wind down, we need to do calming activities, we need to discipline them because they're acting out. When we change that mindset, though, and think about it from a neuro lens, we see that they are trying to meet that threshold.
Yeah, for sure. Putting on those sensory goggles,
throw them on,
like you always say, and just, viewing it like a lot of times these kids have been seated and still all day long. And then even when they come home, we're seated and having dinner. And so then by the time we're winding down for, bedtime, kids are like, no, I've got to get this energy out that I have kept in all day. Exactly. And so we've got to give them, purposeful time and activities to get it out.
Exactly. And the key word there, I think, is purposeful. It shouldn't be just, and we'll get into this a little bit more, but it shouldn't be just chaotic, throwing them in the air, crashing. It should be more sequenced, specific, and purposeful. Functional is the term that we use in OT, where we're trying to have like a specific start, a specific stop, and then some specific heavy work activities in there as well. So we'll talk a little bit more about the order of operations and things like that. But I think just to get warmed up here, it's helpful to realize what you're seeing, and what you're seeing before bed isn't them, just trying to necessarily get it out at night. It's just they have a high threshold, and they are like doing whatever they can to try and meet that and feel like they can go to sleep and slow down.
Yeah, so true. I also, maybe we need to get into this later, but now I'm just like, the gears are turning.
Let's
and I'm
just
like,
jump in. Let's do it.
Like, what even in your dinner time routine can we be adding in too, as we're thinking about, obviously that's a typical part of your night routine, but what kind of foods and drinks and things should we be adding? Could we be avoiding that are going to help them be more regulated? Like crunchy things, cold things, things that are high in like nutrient dense foods, all of those things that are actually going to help our children. We don't even, think about that
exactly
as a sensory strategy.
I always think of like dinner, and then after dinner it's like the pre-bedtime routine.
Yeah.
And whether you're going outside, if the weather's nice, you're going outside, you're running, you're playing, you're going for a family walk, you're playing a sport together, you're, you know, building an obstacle course, and that's like the pre-bedtime.
Yeah.
Right. So you still have some time before the actual bedtime routine starts, and then you can try and wind down a little bit.
So true.
But we, you know, even maybe do an obstacle course before dinner.
Yeah.
Have our intensely flavored foods, our high sensory snacks as part of dinner, our post-dinner pre-bedtime sensory diet.
Yeah.
You know?
So true.
And then hopefully they'll be regulated enough to slow down and read a story and relax.
Yeah, and I think kids do really well when we have consistent routines and they know what to expect. But it's also important to know too that some days your kid is going to need a little bit more or a little bit less, and things that worked, you know, on Monday might not be working by Friday, you know?
Exactly.
So having different tools in that toolbox for your night routines is going to be so helpful.
Totally. So let's take a minute to just kind of define what a sensory seeker is. If you've never heard that topic, but you're like, oh, maybe that sounds like my kiddo. A sensory seeker is a kiddo or an adult or an individual in general who has a high sensory threshold. So they need more input in order to feel that same amount of input that you and I might feel just sitting right here. So we think about it from a cup analogy with you wake up in the morning and you've got your morning cup, and it's a big Yeti cup because there's a lot of input, and they wake up in the morning and that cup is really low and there's not a lot of liquid in there. So as you're pouring more sensory input into the cup, you may notice that it's like spilling out because there's holes in it and you just can't get that enough input for it to register in that brain because it's just constantly spilling out.
Yeah.
So that's how these kids feel. They're like give me more. I want to register it. I want to feel something. But they're just not able to meet that threshold.
Yeah, and I think so many times these poor kids get labeled as bad.
Always.
Yeah, like they're the bad kid, they're the behavior kid, but they're really just trying to communicate their needs to us, but they don't, you know, a lot of times these kids don't even understand what they're doing. They're just like trying to feel right in their body and something feels off to them.
Yeah, but I think that they are doing a good job listening to their body.
True.
You know, like they know they need more and they're trying to do it.
Yeah.
But usually the way that they're trying to get that input isn't always like a socially acceptable way to do it, or it's not always like, you know, what we would typically expect to see a child doing. They're like upside down rubbing their head on the floor, and you're like
or climbing on the bookshelf in the corner, and you're like, that's not safe.
But when we can rephrase that and teach a child, wow, your body is really craving a lot of input right now, let's meet that threshold, let's give you some appropriate, I don't like using the word appropriate, but like expected, you know, let's give you some expected input and see if we can help meet that need and help your body feel a little bit better.
Yeah, I love that. All right, let's talk about some common mistakes that we typically see happening during those bedtime routines. One of the big things I think is we expect our kids to get right to zero as soon as we say it's time for bed. We expect them to just shut down, get under the blankets, and it's like, all right,
what
cool.
we want to do.
Yeah,
you know?
Like I can shut my brain off in like that, you know? If I'm ready for bed, I'm like, oop, all right, in bed in 10 seconds, I'm asleep.
Lucky.
I know, I am one of the lucky ones. Sleep has never been an issue for me. I'm so grateful. But
so nice.
We can't expect that from our kids, right? And, you know, or removing movement before bed because you're like, I noticed they've been getting really rambunctious at night. I'm just going to take all of that away and hope that helps them calm down. And, you know, you're removing your nuggets and your spinny tools and toys and things like that, but that's actually probably going to do the opposite of what we want.
Another common like mistake that we think about doing at bedtime is that we sit down and watch a movie together, or we put a show on because it physically stops them, right? They sit down and they're quiet and they're focused on the movie or the show or whatever it is, when in reality I think that's doing more harm than good. I personally notice that whenever my kiddos do like get either more screen time than they normally do or more screen time before bed, they're absolute a-holes, for lack of a better word. I apologize. Hopefully there's no little ears listening, but they truly are.
Yeah.
And I explain it to my husband all the time. I'm like, you have to see that, like, I know it's hard in the moment, but taking a little extra time to set up an activity for them to do, play a game in the evening, do a puzzle together. It will save you. The screen time in the evening is like drugs for these little brains, you know, and I say it, you know, we obviously use screens in our house. We don't use iPads or phones for our kids, but they do get to watch a slow-paced show. So I think if you are going to do something that involves screen time, find the oldest school show that you can that is slow and boring.
Yeah.
And turn that on.
Yeah. I love Little Bear.
Yeah.
Franklin.
Love Franklin.
Those classic cute shows. Just.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something definitely a little bit slower paced. Also thinking about our circadian rhythm, we've kind of been talking about this just in our own daily lives of like getting outside in the morning. But if it's dark out and our brain is trying to register that it's nighttime and it's time to slow down, if we have the screens and the bright lights going and flashing, our brain is getting confused on, are we supposed to be winding down for a bit, or is this first thing in the morning? Like, what time of day is it?
Exactly. They actually do make little kid like red sunset glasses. So the ones that I use, they have little kid versions.
Adorable.
So it's like, you know, maybe if you want to turn red light bulbs on at night, or, you know, something to like trigger the circadian rhythm to say, hey, it actually is time to start releasing melatonin, even though that process actually starts in the morning, which is why we shouldn't put kids on the screens first time in the morning as well.
Yeah.
But that's just to say, like, there are modifications, like some of those glasses and light bulbs and stuff, and just, you know, going outside in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening for sure. But I'm glad you brought that up because it is, we could do a whole episode on that.
Yeah, we can. And we probably will.
Yeah.
That's like your hot topic right now, I feel like.
It is. That's what I'm writing my book. It's a lot about that too.
I just can't wait to read it.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be so good.
It's going to be great.
It is. Okay, I'm also thinking about the inconsistency. I kind of touched on this a few minutes ago, but I just feel like if kids don't know what to expect every night, it's so much harder on them. So trying to avoid super long or inconsistent night routines that are just crazy, like just pick a couple things and like stick to it.
One of our coworkers actually was telling us about a trip that she went on, that her family went on, and they have kids, you know, the same age as her kiddos, and she said that their bedtime, the people who they were visiting, their bedtime was absolute chaos. And it was like, oh, we need to go to bed. Oh, but wait, I want a snack. Okay, wait, but let's go downstairs and get a snack. Oh, wait, but you're in trouble. Oh, wait, no, we need to go upstairs and go to bed and go to sleep. And it was just this like pinball back and forth of like, the child literally has no idea what to expect at bedtime because it's like up and down and roller coaster and all around. And our coworker was just like, I was confused for the child. Like, I didn't know what to expect. It was like so hard, where it's like, you know, they specifically have a very like intense routine where it's like 2 books, 2 kisses, 1 drink of water, 1 song, lights out. Yeah. Like, I don't do that well just because that's not really how my brain works, but it's still like consistent, you know?
Yeah. I like the idea of the books before bed. I just feel like it's helpful to connect with your kids after you've gotten all of the movement out, and you can get in and just give some like deep pressure snuggles, get a book, let them pick the book. You know, I think when we let kids control part of their day and their routines, picking out their own pajamas, you know, sometimes limiting options so that it's not so chaotic, but you know, put out 2 or 3 outfits, 2 or 3 books, let them pick from it. I think choice matters a lot in regulation.
Definitely.
And them feeling in control. But I do like the idea of books, and I hope that when I'm a parent one day that is something I can stick with, because it's just adorable. I remember as a kid, it was just something to look forward to at the end of the day, to have time when you've been away from your parents and those people that you feel closest to just connect with them.
And the undivided attention. Yeah. You know, it's like you are there. There's no phones. There's no, you know, TVs on. It's just you and your parent.
Yeah, I love that.
So let's move into some of our tips, tricks, and strategies when it comes to getting a sensory seeker the right input before bed to get them calmed down. And I want to start by saying, so often I feel like a kiddo is crazy before bed, so we naturally think we need only proprioceptive input, right? When in doubt, probe it out. Yeah, I'm in doubt right now. Like, let's do some probe, right? But I think that isn't listening to what their body is telling them, right? It's like if they are jumping and bouncing and spinning, they need more of that first in an organized system. Then we do the calming proprioceptive input at the end.
I like the organized vestibular, because sometimes we'll just see kids or parents are just like throwing and flinging, which is like, it is good vestibular input, but maybe not to help calm down, because vestibular can be very alerting. It can also be calming for kids that need it, but it's very alerting. So if we're doing it in haphazard ways, our nervous system is going to be out of control. So like slow spinning with them, you know, slow blanket. What do we call it? Like the blanket parachute. Swing. The blanket swings with two parents, you know, just kind of swinging along. Magic carpet rides, kind of slow vestibular input.
Exactly. Windmills, right? Where you get the slow inverted, going upside down over the therapy ball, slowly but in a coordinated fashion. And this is where obstacle courses come into play too. And this is why we like obstacle courses so much, where you have a function. So you have the kiddo pick the game. Maybe it's pancake pile up, right? We love that one. And then they set up, you know, 3 pillows that they have to jump across, and then they have to grab their pancake, then crawl through a tunnel and put it on the game board, and then repeat. So it's that sequence of repeating it 3, 4, 5 times to get all of their pancakes, and that way they're getting that vestibular, they're getting the prop, and they're getting that function as well.
Yeah, and I feel like following a routine like that is very regulating and calming for kids.
Definitely.
Focused attention.
So a few of our other favorite strategies for bedtime include, like, you know, that whole multi-sensory approach. Like, how can we tap into all of the senses, you know, by adding, obviously we love prop, so we'll share some prop strategies first, but also olfactory input and visual input, auditory input, you know, all of that is so helpful too. So let's start with prop.
Okay. Yeah, I love massage is huge. Again, I'm just like big on connection with, you know, your parent figure, but like getting some, and we can add kind of multiple senses here. If you get some like lavender lotion or something that's really calming, and just kind of massage through, you know, their upper extremities, their lower extremities, and especially for our kiddos, tying back into some of the stuff that I'm always thinking about. But when it comes to like constipation and bowel regularity, like doing some of those like ILU abdominal massages can be like really calming for kids and can really help with digestion before bed. I love that.
The steamroller is always my favorite.
So good.
And you think about it too, in a
squishes.
sense, where it's, you know, active prop versus passive prop, where active lasts, you know, up to 4 hours, when the child is physically doing the proprioceptive input themselves rather than passively. If someone is like steamrolling them and giving them the prop, it's only like a 2-hour time period where that can last. And so I think that's helpful to keep in mind too. Like, if you really want the most bang for your buck, have the kiddo get up and push the wall, you know, or something like that, where they're getting that input actively. While obviously we love a good steamroller, you know, just keep in mind that it's not going to be as long lasting. That calming input isn't going to be as long lasting.
Or even just like make this part of your night routine, where you fill up your laundry basket. If you don't have one, just go by, you know, I'm sure at Dollar Tree they have just like a big plastic bin, fill it and put it at the end of the hall. Before they leave down to their room, fill it with all their stuffies, books, blankets, things, and have them just push it. Rocks. I mean, canned goods, you know, whatever you need to make it heavy, and have them push it all the way down to their room. And that's going to give some really good intentional movement. And it's super easy and quick to set up as a parent. And kids love that kind of stuff.
And I was even thinking, if you want to try and keep it a little bit more structured, put painter's tape down on the floor in like a path, so they have to push it along the path and keep it on the painter's tape in like different directions, and, you know, funny little things where it just makes it a little bit more challenging and a little more exciting, I guess. And
visually stimulating.
But think about that too. Like, the prop is so good to do at the end, as well as part of those transitions to the bedtime routine. You know, crawl to the bathroom to brush your teeth. You know, do a frog hop or a bear crawl to get your pajamas on. Those types of little changes go a long way.
Dinosaur stomps. I feel like dinosaurs are everything right now. Everything and everywhere. So dinosaur stomping from one to the next place. And then also, you know, in conjunction with that, like making sure we're turning down the lighting in the house. Like you were saying, even adding some like low red lights in your lamps, or switching the colors at the at the end of the night, not having those fluorescent overheads on,
Yep.
just really helping their nervous system realize that this is nighttime and it's time to start slowing down.
Turn on the classical music as well.
Yeah.
The quiet classical music. That's always helpful. My kids love it when we do that. And it's just like a nice, calm aura as well.
I found a cute channel that I use in my classroom a lot on YouTube, but it's a whole little playlist of instrumental versions of cute Disney
that's
songs.
Fun. Oh, of course.
Yeah, they've got like the Finding Nemo, they've got some Frozen, and it's just really calm and quiet. But the kids are like, oh, I know that one, and they like recognize it, but it's very calm, and I love it in the background throughout the day.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe we'll have to link that.
I know, I've got to find it.
Yeah. So really the moral of the story is more sequenced, more structured sensory input. Tap into all of the senses whenever possible. And when it continues or you're really struggling and you've implemented a lot of these strategies, let's think about some of the other areas too that we want to make sure that we're talking with our primary care provider about when it comes to things like sleeping with our mouth open, sleep apnea, airway challenges, nutritional deficiencies like restless leg syndrome. Those are some of the first ones that come to mind.
I agree. And I think this is all so interconnected, and my lens is so, pelvic floor and potty training. So I'm like, these are all the things that I always ask my families when they're coming to me if their kid is having any kind of GI issues. Are we looking at sleep apnea? Because it's affecting their breathing. It's also going to impact bedwetting, later in life if their pressure system is off internally. So that's something that you really want to look out for. If you're like, my kid is always waking up in the middle of the night, they may be catching their breath and it's jolting them awake. And we're mistaking it for something else going on. So if you notice things like that, set up a baby monitor and watch, because if your child is jolting awake, that's where I'm like, okay, there might be something going on with their breathing.
For sure.
And it's causing distress, and it's causing them to be tired during the day at school.
And like, look at their facial structure. Like, do they have bags under their eyes and dark circles? Is their face long? Like, notice some of those structural changes too. What do their tonsils look like? Right. I think it's all like, I mean, look at their palate. Does their palate look like mine, where it's just like a steeple up there? Like, we don't want that. No. Are they grinding their teeth? That's another sign that they're trying to open their airway as well.
Yeah, so true. And then the GI issues, even just think as an adult, like what it feels like if you're having an upset stomach, like how hard it is to fall asleep, and you've got bubbling going on in there, and they just feel that constant pressure. So just things to keep an eye out for. And you're like, all right, maybe we should get with our pediatrician, chat through some of these issues that might be going on. That's more than just sensory. A lot of times there are these little medical things that are underlying too. Yeah,
I think it's good to keep that in mind, where it's not always sensory. Sensory is not typically the only answer. Usually it's a part of the puzzle that we need to address, but just make sure that we are looking at the whole child and not just this one area for sure. So hopefully you can take something away from this episode. Hopefully it was helpful in some way, or at least kind of gets your wheels turning, and you can modify that evening routine. And again, try it consistently for 2 weeks and see if you notice any changes. If not, then let's maybe address some of these other underlying challenges. But we appreciate you being here. Make sure that you are subscribed. Make sure that you like this video or you like this podcast wherever you're listening or watching. Take a screenshot and share it on Instagram. We're at All Things Sensory Podcast, and maybe send it to a family member or a friend who maybe has a sensory seeker and they need to know this information. But we just appreciate you being here, and we'll see you next week.
See you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to All Things Sensory by Harkla.
You can find links and resources from today's conversation right in the description of this episode.
If you want to connect, ask a question, or share what resonated with you, come find us on Instagram at All Things Sensory Podcast. We'd love to hear from you.
As a podcast listener, you get 10% off your first order at Harkla. Just use the code SENSORY at checkout, or head to harkla.co/sensory to get started.
We're so grateful you're here and honored to be a part of your journey.
Everything we share here is for educational purposes only and reflects our professional experience. It isn't medical advice. Please consult your healthcare provider for support specific to your child.
Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.